Okay, hi there. Welcome to an updated video on the basic economics of import tariffs. Tariffs are a tax on imported goods and services, which nearly always lead to higher prices for consumers. And governments typically impose tariffs when they're seeking to increase their revenues and also perhaps protect specific sectors or industries within their economy. Tariff wars can also erupt when trade disputes flare up, and tariffs are then used as a protectionist response, and they represent clearly a movement away from the principles and practice of free trade across borders. This introductory video just provides an overview of where tariffs are in the world economy, using data on average import tariffs for selected countries in 2019, taken from the annual World Trade Organization report. Here's the first little cluster of countries. You can see that Brazil, for example, has relatively higher tariffs. The second column there shows the trade-weighted average import tariff. That means the average tariff is weighted according to the volume or the percentage of total trade with each country. So the weighting is to represent the relative importance of trade with a particular country. So on average in Brazil, the import tariff is 10%, higher for farm products. And indeed, you can see that in most cases, the average tariff for agricultural imports, whatever it is, cocoa, coffee, tea, is higher than it is overall, including from manufactured goods. The European Union there, of course, quite interesting. We leave the European Union, Britain leaves the EU at the end of the transition period, at the end of 2020, and the big debate is whether there will be some kind of free trade deal which will allow UK firms tariff-free access into the European Union. We wait to see. Typically, developing emerging countries tend to have higher tariffs than developed countries. So a good example there would be Ghana, where the import tariff is 11% overall, over 16% for farm output. Hong Kong is a really good example for your notes of a country that adheres to free trade principles. Hong Kong is a free port. In fact, the level of trade, the value of exports and imports, is several times higher than their GDP. And it pursues a free trade policy, does not maintain barriers on trade. There's no tariff charged on import or export of products. India, relatively high tariffs. Look at the number there for the average trade-weighted tariff for agricultural goods, over 60%. And indeed in South Korea, that figure is even higher, touching on 80% average tariff for farm output. Mexico, a fascinating country. Again, quite a big disconnect there between the overall tariff and for farm output. New Zealand and the United States, relatively low tariffs, high-income countries. Indeed, again, New Zealand is a country that adheres largely to free trade principles. The average tariffs there are pretty low. In terms of the European Union, these are the average tariffs applied by the EU for farm imports on most favoured nation terms. 2019, you can see that there's no tariff on cotton, but there are significant high tariffs on things like cereal, 17%, fruit and vegetables, 13%, sugar and confectionery, 27%, and dairy products, a tariff of nearly 33%, quite significant. My last slide in this introductory video thinks about the tariff war that's been fought between the United States and China. In September 2019, the United States imposed import tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods. They'd done that a year before in September 2018, from footwear to food products and some home electronic items. So the trade war essentially between the world's two biggest economies measured by GDP was initiated by President Trump, who'd accused China of unfair trading practices and the theft of intellectual property. So this is a trade war that has accelerated over time, and additional tariffs have been imposed in May of 2019 and September of 2019. This is one of those continuous topics that it's well worth keeping on top of as part of your notes. So that's a little bit of background, a bit of overview on the basic levels of tariffs in different countries. In the next video, we'll work through the really key analysis diagram that's needed to get great marks in exams on tariffs. Okay, thank you very much indeed.